is not an option. I was a mother by the age of 18. By 19, I dropped out of college. By 20, I'd been married, divorced, and the victim of domestic violence. According to every statistic out there, I was doomed to a life of poverty. I was doomed to spend my time being knocked up and knocked around. But you see, I had a problem. There was this adorable, sweet, innocent little boy, and his future depended on my success or failure. Failure was not an option. During those same troubled years of my life, I was hired by a new startup. I spent 5 years working side by side with the owner of this company. And in those 5 years, we grew that company to 5 times its original size. And in those 5 years, I learned more about running a business and growing a business than most people will learn in 30. So at the age of 21, I opened my business consulting firm because I had something to prove. By 22, I quit my full-time job to run that business because I was not going to be a statistic. By 23, I bought my first house, and by 24, I opened my first title insurance agency because failure had never been an option. Then in 2008, the housing market crashed. Over 50% of my consulting clients were in the real estate industry. They closed their doors. It wasn't their fault. They didn't fail. Neither did I. But we learned something. We learned that no matter how good your line, your bait, your reel, if you are fishing in a pond with no fish, you're only ever going to catch the food. At the age of 31, a letter arrived. That letter said that I had 24 hours to cease and desist all operations for my title insurance agency because the title insurance company that I wrote policies for had filed for bankruptcy. Later the next day, still coming to terms with this devastating news and confirming that I had no viable options for saving my company, my husband of 10 years decided to track mud all over the floors that I had just washed. And when I politely asked him to clean up his mess, he went on an angry tirade. And that boy, not so little anymore, watched the whole thing. And I will never, until the day I die, forget the look in his eyes. I said, "Oh, Mom, why?" And all I could think in that moment is, what is he learning? What is he learning watching this overgrown toddler trample all over me day after day and year after year? And in that moment, I knew failure was not an option. And so, with my business in shambles and my marriage amounting to nothing more than the dirt on the floor, I moved myself and my children over 2 hours away to be closer to friends and family. I left the marriage that was only moderately less abusive than the first one. And I refocused my business in the software sector. And I learned something. I learned a lot of things. I learned project management, portfolio management. I learned how to build entire departments from scratch. I learned how to run international teams of people to accomplish goals. I learned how to make meaningful, lasting change in global corporations. And I built a life that I never dreamed was possible. And I learned something. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to make room for something bigger and better. There's no other way it'll fit. So at this point, you're probably thinking that I am the most headstrong, determined, brave little thing that you've ever seen. But to tell you the truth, I'm not. I am scared and confused and frustrated and angry, just like anybody else. But I learned something. I learned that the only way to fail is to not try. So as long as I kept on trying, failure was never an option. There are only 2 options in life. Either you succeed or you learn something. I'm Cheryl with Cheryl.wTf. I'm a business coach, and I take businesses and business owners from what the to wicked transformations.